Hey y'all, Irix Guy here, and several of y'all asked me what's the best computer for video editing and what's the best video editing software. Now I posted a video like this in the past, but these are my opinions as of April 2020. And I want to remind everyone you can expand this video's description and then click the link there, and I've got a page on my website where I've listed all of these computers that I'm about to mention, as well as the external hard drives. So for starters, you can scroll back if you want to and look at my earliest Irix Guy's Adventure Channel videos. So when I started this channel in a big way, I got a Mac and I didn't have Final Cut Pro 10 at the time because I didn't have the budget for Final Cut Pro 10 software. I used iMovie, and iMovie worked exceptionally well. I actually was able to do a lot with iMovie, including green screen, and the interface of iMovie was very similar to the interface of Final Cut Pro 10. Now, iMovie, because it was free and it came included with the Mac OS operating system, it was somewhat limited. I think the maximum video duration was only a few minutes, whereas Final Cut Pro 10, you can make super long duration videos. Also in iMovie, the ability to better refine green screening, chroma keying, whatever you want to call it, that wasn't as robust as Final Cut Pro 10. Now, keep in mind, Final Cut Pro 10 is a professional video editing product, so it would seem to make sense that it has, that's more feature-rich. So with that being said, a few things I want to recommend here. And first of all, I'm going to start by letting y'all know that I started out with a Mac laptop, just a basic Mac laptop with iMovie, and even that basic Mac laptop, I upgraded to Final Cut Pro 10 and was using Final Cut Pro 10 on that. Then I went through a phase where I was using a powerful iMac computer in my studio. I went with the 25-inch iMac with 5K display because that's, the first iMac I had didn't have the 5K. That came later, but the most recent iMac that I ran was one with the 5K display. And I went with that because the memory on the back was user upgradable. So I was able to buy the base model memory configuration and then pop the door on the back of the 25-inch iMac and upgrade the memory myself. Now keep in mind, that could change if Apple releases a newer iMac model. And also at this point in time, April of 2020, the smaller 21-inch iMac is not user memory upgradable. So if you're going with that, you need to keep in mind that when you spec it out, you need to get the amount of memory you'll need because you won't be able to upgrade it. So a few pointers. First of all, establish your budget. And if you feel like you may not have enough, you may want to wait. With that being said, there's a lot of affordable options. So if you're going to do in studio or in home or in office only, and you don't need portability, to do it on the cheap, you can check out the iMac. The iMac, bring your own monitor, bring your own mouse, bring your own keyboard. It's small form factor. It doesn't take up a lot of desktop real estate, just a really good computer. Again, Mac Mini is not user upgradable memory, so you'll need to spec it out with however much memory you feel you might need. And I'll tell you what I'm using now. I'm using MacBook Pro with an i9 processor and 16 gigs of memory. Runs great. If you have money to go for more memory, you may want to, but I can tell you for my 4K video edits, 16 gigs of memory has been fine. I would not go less than 16 gigs because with that, you may not get the performance you want. As far as hard disk is concerned, don't go with a traditional hard drive, mechanical hard drive, don't go with that. Don't go with a Fusion, which is a combination of a flash and mechanical drive. Don't go with that. Go with an SSD. In the iMac that I run right now, or not the iMac, but the MacBook Pro that I run right now, I only run a 512 gig SSD, which for me is fine. It's more than enough space for the operating system in Final Cut Pro 10. And I've got room for, a casual amount of video edits, but I store everything, all my video projects, all my Final Cut Pro 10 video libraries externally on an SSD in the field or in the studio, just a large 14 terabyte traditional hard drive that I've got. So if you're going to be a combination of field and studio, you may want to look at the MacBook Pro like I use. And that's great because when you're in the studio, like I do, I've added an external GPU. You wouldn't have to do that, but I added an external GPU and I've got a Vega 64 in that. So I've got really high-end graphics when I'm in the studio, and I've got multiple monitors connected while I'm in the studio. But when I'm in the field, the MacBook Pro you know, with the i9 is more than powerful enough to get it done. And I carry a small 512 SSD in the field with me for field edits, you know, on top of using the internal storage in the MacBook Pro. And then also carry a large 2 terabyte traditional hard drive in the field with me to store the videos until I bring them back to the studio, copy that Final Cut Pro 10 library containing all the videos over to my 14 terabyte drive, which is then backed up to the cloud. So I've got an off-site backup of all my videos. So, you know, if you need portability, MacBook Pro is the way to go, because it's powerful enough for the field, it's powerful enough for the studio, and if you want to bump up the performance while it's in the studio, connect it to an external GPU in the studio, and it's just it's a great thing. I mean, that's the one Mac that I use now. I don't have a second Mac. You know, I used to use an iMac in the past and just a more basic MacBook Pro laptop, but now I just use the MacBook Pro exclusively. But if you got money for both, you could put an iMac in the studio, and then have your MacBook Pro or lesser model MacBook Air in the field with you to do the field stuff. So that's completely up to you. The beauty of this, and I'll break this down within another video with Final Cut Pro 10, is how it manages the video files. It puts them into what's called a library. So basically it's one file. So say I go to a shoot and I'm at that shoot location for 3 days. I break it down camera by camera, day by day, and then all of that's in one library file. So whether I edit the files from that library from my MacBook Pro, or if I took it back to the studio, say I had a second Mac, I could just plug in that drive and boom, just pop it up and access all of my files from that library. That's the beauty of Final Cut Pro 10. You know, when you've got everything in the library, whether you're editing in the field or editing in the studio, just connect that drive and access those files from Final Cut Pro 10 on whatever computer that you're using. So that makes it super convenient. Also, at least at this point in time with Final Cut Pro 10, they're not a subscription model like the competitor's product, Adobe Premiere. And for that reason, if you're thinking, well, maybe the Mac that you're speccing out may be a little bit more expensive than a PC alternative, factor in that subscription fee that you'd be paying for something like Adobe Premiere. Not saying it's not a great product. I love Adobe products. I use Lightroom and Photoshop very heavily, but for video editing, I've just fallen in love with Final Cut Pro 10, and I think a lot of that's because it was a natural upgrade from the iMovie that was included with Mac OS. So, to recap, a few things you want to do. Are you getting one Mac, or are you getting more than one Mac? If you're only getting one, are you ever going to use it in the field? If so, go with a laptop, go with a MacBook Pro. I would not go less than 16 gigs of memory, and I would not go less than 512 SSD. Don't consider any other options for storage. Only go SSD, because that's going to provide the best performance. It's going to be faster than a mechanical drive, or faster than what they call a fusion drive, which is basically a combination of a mechanical drive and a flash drive. So just only go with SSD. If money allows, go with a 1 terabyte. If not, the 512, at least this point in time, the 512 SSD is more than enough for the OS, Final Cut Pro 10, and an ample amount of videos. But again, when I'm in the field, I carry that external hard drive for long-term storage, and then that external SSD for quick field edits. If you're going to be studio only, if budget's not an issue, go for the iMac. Super powerful. I would recommend the 25-inch because that 5K display is amazing. If you're going to use it in the studio, but you're on a budget, go with the Mac Mini. Super small footprint, bring your own monitor, bring your own mouse, bring your own keyboard. Very good performer. But keep in mind, the MacBook Pro and the MacBook Mini, the memory is not user upgradable. So be sure to get those with the memory that you'll need. And again, I would recommend at least 16 gigs of memory. I use 16 gigs of memory in my current i9 MacBook Pro, more than sufficient for my video edits. If I had money to throw in more memory, maybe I would have. But 16 gigs is more than sufficient. If you go with a desktop MacBook Pro, be sure to go with the 25, because it's got the better monitor. It's got the 5K monitor, and at least at this point in time, and this could change, but the 5K iMac, the memory is user upgradable. So you could buy it with the base amount of memory, which I think may be 8 gigs, and then buy your own memory and upgrade it, which is what I did when I ran an iMac in the past. Again, right now I just use the MacBook Pro i9. So, and again, as a studio, if you want a combination of field and studio, consider an external GPU, an eGPU for your studio. That way, when you return your MacBook Pro to the studio, you plug it in, it acts kind of like a docking station of sorts, but it also gives you really high-end video because you can put whatever the most powerful compatible video card is into that eGPU enclosure, and you can run your monitors in your studio off of that video card in the eGPU enclosure. I use a Vega 64 right now. You can find it linked within this video's description too, but just really bumps up the graphical performance of your of your MacBook Pro. So other than that, we're going to talk in separate videos about how I manage all of my Final Cut Pro 10 libraries. Again, one of the advantages to using Mac over Windows for editing, it's just, I mean, it's an awesome experience. And the main thing is that whether you're using one Mac or multiple Macs, or maybe you upgrade your existing Mac, the way that I manage all my video content for Final Cut Pro 10, I can migrate to a new computer super fast. All I got to do is install Final Cut Pro 10 on the new computer and bring my library files, my Final Cut Pro 10 library files, over to that new computer, and I'm able to work from that. So super easy upgrade path. If you've ever dealt with, and I'm not going to turn this into a Windows versus Mac, but if you've ever dealt with Windows computers, you know they're highly susceptible to viruses. There can be a lot of troubleshooting challenges. The Mac just works. And when your objective is to edit videos efficiently and not have to deal with all the other stuff, Mac is the way to go, man. So comment below, and again, expand this video's description and click the link there, and you can find where to order all the Macs that I just mentioned. Any questions, comment below, and I'll try my best to answer your questions. But yeah, I'm a Mac guy, I'm a Final Cut Pro 10 guy, and this is what I recommend, and I recommend this from experience. Check out my thousands of videos here on Irix Guy's Adventure channel, youtube.com/IrixGuy. And be sure to subscribe and ring that bell icon when you do to be notified whenever I post another video. Thanks for your viewership, and y'all have a good day. Hey y'all, Captain Irix Guy here. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to subscribe. It's youtube.com/IrixGuy. And ring that bell icon when you do to be notified whenever I post another video. Thanks for your viewership, and y'all have a good day.